today I'm going to talk you through how I actually program for my clients, and most importantly, how I coach them and assess them throughout this process. I feel like a lot of people want the perfect program, but what we need to remember is that programming is only half of the picture. We've got so many other things going on, such as how somebody moves, what they do for a living, how active they are outside of training, how their nutrition and sleep is, which is all something that your coach should be helping you out with, in terms of supporting you and understanding you, and then being able to apply this to your programming. So what I'm going to talk through today is how I get to know clients and assess them and how they move, and then how I program for them based off the back of that. So what I always like to start out with is video, but what I have found in the past is I used to like to do some kind of movement assessment first, but what I have found with people, especially where they love training so much, is they just want to dive in and they want to get started straight away. So what I tend to do now is to just get them started straight away and make sure that they film pretty much everything that they do in the first week. I always explain to people, is week one is going to be more time consuming because you're getting used to reading through the program and knowing what you're doing, but also because I'm going to ask you to film everything that you're doing. And what we do is we always have a video call first where we talk through their goals, what they're currently doing, what's working for them, what's not, their strengths and their weaknesses, what they do for a living, and we get all of that sorted before I even start programming. I always say to people as well, if they've already got videos of any movements that they've been working on, to send those across, because that can give me a really good idea and understanding of what I need to program in for them. The other thing that gives me a great idea is just picking up on what people are saying when I am in a call with them. So if you are going about getting a coach, you want to make sure that they're actually actively listening to what you are saying, and I really try to hear how they are describing how movements feel to them. We talk about maybe any injuries or niggles or issues they've had, and then from there that builds for me a really great picture of how they move already without us having to sit down and do assessments, which work great. They work great, especially in like a one-to-one, like in-person setting, but online is where I do my coaching. So that for me builds up the best picture for somebody so they can get started straight away, because everyone's always really excited to get started, which is great, and you want to sign up to coaching and then just kind of hit the ground running. So that's what we always try and do. So my coaching and programming revolves around strength and skill. So being able to move well is important to this, because then it helps us to keep building strength, learn new skills. It also enables us to keep doing this without having any injuries. So I always make sure we have a warm-up or primer, and we have different types of movements in those warm-ups and primers. They get us ready for the session, but also I tend to include things that are going to help prevent injury in these instances as well. And generally we'll keep these, unless anything glaringly obvious comes up in the way somebody's moving, then we'll keep those the same for a few weeks so we can actually see improvements. For example, with things like dead hang on a bar, we improve their dead hang time. We also improve the position, hopefully go from maybe being a bit tight in the lats to then being able to relax down a lot more. And that only happens if you work on something over a series of weeks. What I do with these warm-up movements is I use them to see how a client is moving. For example, if they are struggling with their dead hangs on the bar and to relax right down, or they're struggling with their grip strength, then I know, and I take that one thing that we've noticed and then we add it into programming if needed. Because that's the other thing. We don't always just need to throw everything at programming all of the time. If I'm working on dead hangs and I'm struggling with my grip strength, then if I just carry on working on dead hangs, then my grip strength is going to improve anyway. So I try to include a big range of different movement patterns, as you can see here, throughout warm-ups, so that not only does the full movement patterns, whatever we're working on, I don't know, squats, jerks, bar muscle ups, whatever they're working on, we see it broken down into a much more specific area when we're looking at some of these warm-up movements. And then from there, we know what we need to continue working on. For example, if extension in their Superman is something that they're struggling with on the floor, I know that they're going to be struggling with that on the rig as well, and then we can keep working on that. So then we move on to the main chunk of the sessions. So either working on something technique based, I always put the technique work first and then the strength work afterwards. You can see a range of different things here because this client here is working mainly on the Olympic lifts and handstand work. So you'll see a nice mix of things here. And I'll talk about how I organise programming for people in a different video. When it comes to assessment though, again, I get people to film everything they do, especially in week 1. Then after that, I'll either request videos, they can continue filming everything if they want to, or they just film things that they feel that they need the feedback on. So when we're first starting out, especially when it comes to week 1 of a program, whether you're a new client or you're a current client and we're starting a new block, I always tend to get people to err on the side of caution a little bit with the weights, because what we want to do through when we're assessing strength and we're going through a phase of building strength is we don't want to reach a point necessarily where they end up plateauing, especially in the middle of a block, because then we know that we've perhaps started out too heavy. So I always get clients to start out a little bit lighter, because that gives them room to make sure that they can progressively overload the movement. And that also gives me a great chance to assess where they're currently at, look at the movement and get them started with the movement without having to worry about them pushing too hard or like hurting themselves, injuring themselves by going too heavy to start off with. So that mitigates any risk when it comes to pushing too heavy. And then what we can do is I can look at the videos, review their movement patterns, I can leave them written notes, or also I can film the movement feedback, which is what I do for all my clients as well. So I use that week 1 really as an assessment period. But I think the thing to remember when it comes to getting a coach and going through programming and coaching is that we don't just do one assessment at the beginning of the block. There's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with doing a test week, doing some work and then doing another test week. But I think sometimes too much emphasis is put on, okay, I'm going to max out this week, I'm going to do a block of work, I'm kind of not really paying attention to that. And then because I've done that block of work, I'm going to test at the end of it and my numbers will have gone up. And it's not always that simple because we haven't paid attention to what's going on in the real work in the middle of the block. And we have to remember, and it's my job to remember and support as a coach as well, that people have lots of other things going on in their lives. So another reason why I like to start out lighter in a week 1 is because I can check how they move, we can assess what's going on with both technique and with where they're at with their strength work, and then we can continue to increase. But also because then that gives a little bit of wriggle room to stop them from plateauing if they are struggling with hormones, they're on their period, they're really stressed, or they've got a particularly busy period at work, or they've gone through a time where they've not been able to sleep or eat quite as well as they'd like to. All things that are going to impact how your strength increases over a number of weeks. But if we can manage that together by constantly assessing, then the outcome is going to be much better at the end. With some of my clients, I do testing. I tend not to do a test week straight away unless I know the person who's starting out with me coaching, unless I already know them really well and I've already seen how they move. If somebody's coming in and I've not seen how they move, I'm not going to put them in on any kind of testing week straight away, because we don't want them to push, like I said, push too hard, do themselves a mischief, and then not be able to train in the way they want to. Once I've known a client for a few weeks, maybe we've gone through a block, maybe 2 blocks, so I can really see how they move and what else they've got going on in their lives as well, we can start adding in some testing weeks, because we do need to know what people's numbers are Sometimes people come to me with, they already know all their 1 rep maxes or rep maxes for different movements. Some people have not a clue, and that's not a big thing for them. But we do need some kind of data to go off at some point, but it doesn't necessarily have to be straight off the bat. So when it comes to technique as well, we follow a very similar process when it comes to assessing technique. Asking to video. It's important to video from different angles as well, either in the same session, or 1 week video all from maybe the side, the next week video from 45 degrees, because then that allows me to see what's going on at different parts of the movement, provide feedback that is accurate as well, and then what I can do from the technique work. In particular, when it comes to like week 1, somebody starting out, if there's any glaringly obvious technique issues that are being caused by a strength issue, then I can change the strength programming. But at the end of the day, if you're getting started with the program and you're staying consistent and you are responding to the coach's feedback or my feedback, then you're going to see progress, and there's never necessarily a best exercise for anything anyway, and we're probably going to hit different types of exercises throughout your time with being a client with me anyway, because we will change things up, and generally my clients stay with me for a good period of time, so that we have the opportunity to work on different strength movements and different drills for different skill elements as well. So summarized, the process of onboarding and starting out a new client looks very similar throughout any client's journey, and it's not just something that we do in week 1 with a one-off movement assessment. The assessment is something that takes place constantly, day by day, through messages, through the feedback that the clients leave me on these kind of workouts, through video, so that I can provide coaching that supports and keeps pushing them forwards, as well as being able to program in movements, strength pieces and drills that are going to help move the client forwards. And again, this is something that gets even better and develops with time as we get to know each other and understand other factors that may impact training as well. So if you are looking to get on board with a coach, with programming, then I would strongly suggest that you focus on the idea of coaching and making sure that you've got somebody to coach you rather than how great the program is. Also, if you're able to invest in it, I would definitely invest in coaching over them just getting a program of some sort to follow, because it's the coaching and the constant assessment and adaptation that is the thing that really makes a big difference. You'll see a lot of programs are very similar, but we need that feedback and input to be able to adapt things so that we can always make sure we're on some kind of upward trajectory as much as possible. Obviously, progress is not linear, but we want to try and keep things pushing and moving forwards as much as possible, given the circumstances that you are in. If you'd like to know more about my coaching, my training, you can check out my website, which I put below, and also my Instagram is a great place to start for some ideas about coaching and training too.